5 simple patterns you can hack again and again and again. Hey Stitches, it's your girl Kris. Welcome if you're new, welcome back to the channel if you are an OG. Today's video is going to be a very interesting one, and it is specially made with my beginner sewists and hackists in mind. Now, in case you didn't know, July is Pattern Hacking Month, or the Pattern Hackathon over on Instagram. I am the host of the Pattern Hackathon, and this year I have introduced my co-host, which is my friend and girl Diana of 26 by Diana. Now, the way the Pattern Hackathon is set up, there are 5 weeks in July, and each week will have its own theme. So in honor of the Pattern Hackathon, I am going to be bringing to you a video each week showcasing 5 patterns for the respective theme. Now, these videos are going to drop a week in advance, just in case you want to use them as some inspiration to get your hacks going. Of course, the Pattern Hackathon is a sewing community challenge, and that means it's sponsored, and that means we have prizes. There are 28 sponsors in this year's hackathon. Oh my goodness. Now, if you want all the tea on the prizes, the sponsors, the weeks, the ambassadors, and all of that, make sure you run on over and check out this video right here. You'll find all the information there. And if you're over on Instagram, be sure to be following the Pattern Hackathon handle. It has its very own handle on Instagram. And if you follow it, it means that you can keep abreast of all of the pattern hacking updates. Now, as I said, the weeks have been divided into 5 weeks. And the very first week is Keep It Stupid Simple. This means for the first week, we are going to be targeting simple patterns. And the definition of simple for the purpose of the Pattern Hackathon is a pattern that has 10 pattern pieces or less. Now, if you find yourself a pattern that has 10 pattern pieces or less, get to hacking and you can be entered to win Best Kiss Pattern Hack. Again, there are lots of prizes to be won, but you have to be in it to win it. Now, I know from previous experience that a lot of people seem to be intimidated by pattern hacking. Now, pattern hacking does not need to be complex. It could be, but it doesn't have to be. And so this week, we are shining the spotlight on easy patterns that will get your creative juices flowing, we hope, and get you into the pattern hacking mind. So without further ado, let's jump into the 5 patterns. Now, I do have my computer with me as usual because I'm going to be sharing tons of information with you today for today's video, and I want to make sure that it's as accurate as possible. So please do forgive me if you see me looking down from time to time. Now, I also should highlight just before I share the patterns that when I'm sharing the patterns, I am trying the best as I could to highlight the Pattern Hackathon sponsors. And for today's video, I am sharing 5 different patterns from 5 different companies, all who are sponsoring the Pattern Hackathon. Now, the first pattern I want to talk about is a cult favorite in the sewing community. It is the True Bias Ogden Cami. Everybody and their mama has made themselves at least one True Bias Ogden Cami. Your girl included. I think I have made maybe 2 or 3 of the True Bias Ogden Camis. They are, I think, still hanging in my closet amidst all of the other camis that I have ever made. But this one is definitely a great base for pattern hacking. Now, the True Bias Ogden Cami has, you guys, 5 pattern pieces. There's the front bodice, the back bodice, the front facing, the back facing, and the straps. That means that this definitely fits into the category 5 out of the 10 pieces. And because it has so few pieces, it, in my mind, really amps up the pattern hacking potential. Now, I have seen my girl Diana hack the True Bias Cami, and she made a gathered tiered dress, and I thought it was beautiful, you guys. Just taking a simple silhouette and adding some tiers to it, and it completely changed up the vibe and look of this camisole. Now, the True Bias Ogden Cami retails for US $14 on the True Bias website, and it does come with both PDF and paper options. Now, some of us girlies are drawn to PDF patterns, mainly because we're not located in places where it's easy to get paper patterns. And if you're like me, it means that you are not excluded from sewing up this pattern. Now, obviously, there are perks to having the paper pattern, the major one being you do not have to print out and assemble a PDF copy. But as I said, not all of us have those privileges. Now, the True Bias Ogden Cami cami comes with two different size ranges. The first one is a 0 to 18, which has been drafted for, I think, a B or a C cup. It targets a chest of 32 inches up to 44.5 inches and a waist of 26 inches up to 38.5 inches. And the second size envelope runs from a size 14 up to a size 30 and has been drafted for a D cup. Now, the chest measurements for the 14 to 30 start at a 41.5 inches and goes up to a 57.5 inch, and the waist is a 34.5 inch up to 50.5 inches. Now, one of the major perks of this pattern is that it is a no notion pattern. Now, my girl Rochelle of Rochelle Handmade Designs, she was actually a pattern hacker for last year's pattern hackathon. She likes to bring you guys the no notions patterns. Now, this one definitely needs to be added to her list because the True Bias Ogden has no notions. That means you do not have to be worried about zippers, about buttons, about any of those things. You just sew your side seams together, put your straps and facings in, and it is a done deal. Well, at least if you're making up in its original version. Now, I have already shared one inspiration with you guys in terms of how to hack this pattern. It was the tiered dress that I told you my girl Diana had made, but I can see so much more being done to the True Bias Ogden. Take the straps, for example, and add in some flutters to the straps and give it a nice flutter sleeve. I can see adding one short tier and making this into a peplum. I can see adding tie straps instead of the stable straps. I can see you adding many different tiers to the skirt structure. I think Diana's had 2. You can add as many as you like and make it any length you like. And obviously, each one of those additions will give you a different hack. So if you're looking to enter the pattern hackathon, but you have no idea where to begin, I would 10/10 recommend the True Bias Ogden Cami. Now, the next pattern I want to talk about and the next pattern hackathon sponsor is Chalk and Notch Patterns, and I'm specifically talking about their Chalk and Notch Aria top. Now, I was fortunate enough to be selected as a tester for the Chalk and Notch Aria, and it is designed in its original format to have bubble sleeves and to have a bubble hem. Now, you know your girl had to make it up obviously in its original format for the testing, but I have also hacked this pattern 2 times, you guys. Actually, I guess I hacked it 1 time because I just repeated the hack, and it was a very, very simple hack. I simply omitted the elastic. So instead of having the bubble sleeves and the bubble hem, I ended up with just a nice pullover blouse, and I have worn both of those hacks numerous times to the office. I made one which I am particularly fond of in a True Bias silk fabric that had been gifted to me by my sister cousin for one of my birthdays a couple years ago. And you guys, I love, love, love that blouse. Now for me, because of my size range, I was actually able to whip it up using 1 meter of Liberty silk fabric. It meant that instead of cutting my back on the fold, I did have to create a seam line down the back. And by the way, creating seam lines do count as pattern hacks because that is not what the pattern was originally intended to be. So yes, if you had any doubt, if you're adding seam lines to your patterns, then yes, they are considered pattern hacks. And as I said, I was able to whip up a blouse using the Aria top. Now, the Chalk and Notch Aria retails for you as $18 and comes in PDF copies only. Now, it has been designed with a size range of 0 up to 30, and it has 2 bust cup options, a B cup and a D cup. That means that those of you who are a little bit more well endowed do not have to do a full bust adjustment for the Chalk and Notch Aria blouse. Well, that is if you have a 4-inch difference between high bust and full bust. If you have drastically more, then you might still need to do a full bust adjustment, but some of the groundwork, dare I say, has already been laid for you. Now, the Aria top, as I indicated earlier, has been designed to be a bubble blouse, and it has been drafted for woven fabrics. Now, I don't see any reason why you cannot hack this pattern to use up knit fabrics instead of woven fabrics. Maybe something that is a little bit more stable. Maybe you can get away with doing it in like a ponte knit or something like that. I myself do not have a lot of experience sewing up knit fabrics. This year, I have challenged myself and I am getting a little bit better at buying and sewing my knit fabrics, but I still do have a lot to learn. So my recommendation for using knit fabrics, I'm going to to say to take that one with a grain of salt, but those of you who have a little bit more experience than I do with knit fabrics can probably figure out a couple more of the knit substrates that you can use to successfully pull off a chalk and notch Aria. I will say, however, if you are going to use a knit fabric, you're probably going to need to size down at least a size or two, but again, trial and error, and see how this one works out. Now, I can envision a couple other hacks for the chalk and notch Aria. Again, you can go ahead and turn this blouse into a dress. I can see just lengthening it quite a bit, maybe to about mid-thigh area or so, and you can have yourself a nice, short, flirty dress for the summer. You can keep the bubble hem. Bubble hems are kind of trending right now. Or you can ditch the bubble hem and just have a pull-on dress. Now, this pattern only has one notion, which is elastic. But of course, if you do like I did, you can ditch the elastic and end up with a no notion pattern. Now, I can easily see as well altering the back of this pattern. It does have a lower back option with a tie. I can see making the shape of the back a little bit different. Instead of having a square back, maybe introducing a V back. I can see adding a couple tiers to the blouse and making it into a tiered dress, maybe with some elastic at the waist to give a little bit of cinching at the waistline and create a little bit more shaping, or instead adding some waist ties to the side and be able to tie it to the back or to the front. Or you can probably even create a drawstring channel and then have like your ties to the center front. So lots of potential, I think, with the chalk and notch Aria. As I've said, I've made this pattern in its original version and I've also made it hacked. And I do think I want to make a couple more Arias for my wardrobe, particularly my work wardrobe. Now, the next one I want to talk about is actually one from the Big Five Pattern Company. Now, Sew Direct is a sponsor for the Pattern Hackathon, and Sew Direct is the international hub for the Big Five patterns. And so I thought it was perfectly fine to include a Big Five pattern in the mix, although I should put you guys on notice that this pattern is not a size inclusive pattern. Now, the Big Five pattern I want to talk about is McCalls 8160, and this one, you guys, has only 7 pattern pieces. And that one is a little bit alarming because there are 4 different views of this pattern: one top, one dress, a pair of shorts, and a pair of trousers. And as I said, the entire pattern envelope only has 7 pattern pieces. Now, because it has a couple of options, then it means that there is tons of combinations that you can have with just the pattern pieces in the envelope, and pattern mashups are considered to be pattern hacks. Now, I can see you pairing the top of this pattern with the shorts and creating like a romper, or even with the trousers and creating a jumpsuit, maybe adding some additional shaping at the waistline seam with elastic or drawstrings. Now, other than the jumpsuit, I can see you making up just the trousers or the shorts and making a midi length short. Now, you know those like Bermuda short length pants are like trending. I don't even know what you guys actually call them, but I have seen them everywhere. I'm not sure how I feel about them personally, but if you are interested in following this trend, then I think that this pattern will be a great simple pattern to at least get you to a good starting point. Now, the McCalls pattern retails for US $14.67 on the Simplicity website, or you can score it for about $4.99 or so US dollars when the McCalls patterns go on sale. It is available in both PDF and paper format, and all of the sizes are included in the same envelope. The sizes range from an extra small up to a double XL, and that is for a bust of 29.5 inches up to 46 inches. So as I said very early on, not a size inclusive pattern. But if you do happen to fall into the size range, then I absolutely think that this will be a great simple pattern for you to put your own unique touch on for the Pattern Hackathon 2025. Now, the first 3 patterns that I refer to, I actually own them and have them in my stash. The first 2 I have actually sewn and hacked. The McCalls one, I do have it, but I have not made it up just yet. But the last 2 patterns that I'm going to be sharing with you, I actually do not own these patterns, but I do still think that they have great hacking potential. Now, the first of the 2 I want to refer to is the Blank Slate Patterns Esma top. Now, the Esma top, based on the line drawings that I have seen, probably has like 7 pattern pieces. It has a front, a back, maybe a front facing and a back facing. Because it has like a grown on or drop type sleeve, there is a cuff, so I'll add the cuff. And then there's an option to do like a hemband and there is a tie front option. So I'm going to go ahead and hazard a guess that this pattern has 7 pieces. Now, the one thing I will say about the Big Five Pattern Company is that on the envelope itself, you can see how many pattern pieces are included in the pattern envelope. That is not the same thing with a lot of the indie patterns. You actually have to have the indie pattern that you can go through the instructions, and then you'll be able to determine how many pattern pieces your pattern has. So as I said, I'm just hazarding a guess that this Esma top has about 7 pattern pieces. Now, it has been designed to have a V-neck. I think a very simple hack would be to change that to maybe a crew neck, maybe even wider the neckline and have, what is it called? Is it called a bateau neckline? You know, that boat neckline type of situation. I think that would be fairly easy to accomplish with this pattern. As I said, this one does have cuffs because it has a grown-on sleeve, but I can see no reason why you cannot hack the pattern to include like a bubble sleeve, maybe even lengthen it into a full sleeve. Depending on where you live, you might want to have a little bit of arm coverage right now. And with all other tops, you can make this one as well into a dress just by lengthening the pattern pieces themselves, because it does seem to have like a kind of A-line shaping, or maybe even adding some tiers, cutting it off at the natural waistline, and then adding your tiers to suit. If you add your tiers, you might even consider introducing a split. You know your girl loves to show a little bit of leg, and I find introducing a split or maybe even side slits a good way to get a little bit more circulation around my legs and to have a little bit more of a leg moment. So again, that is the Blank Slate Patterns Esma top. Now, I kind of feel like a lot of the patterns that I have shared with you started off as blouses, except for the McCalls one, which had a combination of different garment types. But the last one I want to talk about today is going to be the Style Arc Ayla woven skirt. Now, because I do not own this pattern, I am going to guess how many pattern pieces this has, and I'm going to hazard a guess that this one has maybe 6 pattern pieces. There is a front skirt, the back skirt, the cocoon addition to the front, the cocoon addition to the back, the waistband, and then pockets. Maybe even 7, depending on whether they have split up the waistband into a front waistband and a back waistband. I'm not quite sure, but I would say maybe 6 or 7 pattern pieces. Now, this skirt silhouette is a little bit intriguing with the cocoon shape, but I do get that it's not for everybody. And so a very easy hack would be simply to omit the cocoon section of the skirt, and then you're left with a great skirt base, which is an elastic waist skirt. It doesn't get any simpler than that. Now, with an elastic waist skirt, there is lots of potential. You can go ahead and turn your skirt into a dress by finding a bodice that you like and mashing it up. Or you can create a tiered skirt. Think something like the True Bias Maeve skirt that has like 3 or 4 different tiers. If you play around with the tiers of the Ayla woven skirt, you can recreate a tiered skirt that looks very similar to that one. You can change the skirt to have a flat front with the elastic at the back. Instead of having elastic going right away around the skirt, you can change the depth of the waistband from a more narrow waistband into a thicker waistband, maybe adding 2 elastic channels instead of 1, introducing a drawstring instead of the elastic. Lots of potential, I think, with the Ayla woven skirt. Now, the Ayla woven skirt retails for Australian dollar $14.40, and this is for the PDF multi-size option. There are a few different options on the Style Arc website so far as your patterns are concerned. You can have PDF versus paper, and then you can have single size versus multi-size. Now, I myself prefer to have multi-size patterns because I do tend to have to blend between my sizes quite a bit. And in the off chance I want to make a pattern for a friend or family member or even a commission, it's always nice to have multiple sizes. But I can absolutely see those people who would only want to buy the single size if you are sure on your sizing. And again, because this is an elastic waist skirt, there's lots of wiggle room, I think. And so you can save some coin and just buy yourself the single size. Now, the sizes range from a 4 up to a 36, and that is for a waist of 23.5 inches up to 61 inches, and for a hip of 32.6 inches up to 70 1/8 of an inch. So this pattern, dare I say, is a size inclusive pattern. So this one actually ticks 2 different boxes. It ticks the simple patterns and it also ticks the size inclusive category, which I'll be sharing with you guys a little bit later on. So you guys, there you have it. Those were the 5 simple patterns that you can hack again and again and again for Pattern Hackathon 2025. Feel free to start with something simple and you can work your way up. But if you are a veteran hacker and you want to go all in and show off your hacking skills, I still do think that having base patterns with such few pieces really gives a lot of opportunity to really unleash the hacking potential. Now, if you enjoyed today's video, be sure to go ahead and give me a thumbs up. Drop me a comment down below and let me know which of these 5 patterns you might consider hacking for the Pattern Hackathon. And if none of these 5, have you identified any other patterns that have 10 pattern pieces or less that you might want to use for Pattern Hackathon 2025? Remember, I said you have to be in it to win it. And there is going to be a special prize for a self-proclaimed beginner hacker. I think it's going to be a random draw. So all of you guys out there who have never hacked anything before, make sure to go ahead and give hacking a try and enter your submissions into the Pattern Hackathon by 11:59 p.m. no matter what your time zone is on July the 31st, 2025. And you can stand a chance at winning a prize. Again, that one is going to be a random prize. There is going to be a judged prize as well for the best beginner pattern hack. And that is going to be a self-proclaimed beginner hacker who has really showed up and showcased some real creativity with the pattern hack. That one is going to be judged. So 2 options, one for the random draw, one for the judged. If you are a beginner hacker, please do give pattern hacking a try and enter the Pattern Hackathon 2025. I do want to say at this time a special thank you to our sponsors, particularly the 5 sponsors that we have highlighted in today's video. Let me just recap. They are True Bias, Chalk and Notch, So Direct, which is the international hub for the big 5 patterns, Style Arc, and Blank Slate patterns. Now, if you happen to be shopping any of these patterns throughout the month of July, we are encouraging shoppers to go ahead and let the sponsors know that you are buying their pattern because of the Pattern Hackathon 2025. Even if you don't actually use that pattern for the hackathon, just go ahead and leave them a note. A lot of them in their checkout has a notes box, and we're encouraging you guys just to let them know that their sponsorship is well worthwhile. They cannot pour from empty cups, and so it's really nice letting them know that their sponsorship really does matter. So again, thank you very much to all of the sponsors for Pattern Hackathon 2025, but particularly the 5 sponsors for today's video. Now, if you have gotten this far in today's video and you're not a subscriber, then please also consider subscribing to the channel. As I said, this is going to be a 5-part series, and each part is going to drop the Tuesday before its respective week. So today's Tuesday when you're seeing this video. The Pattern Hackathon kicks off in exactly 1 week's time on Tuesday, the 1st of July. And I wanted to give you guys enough time to maybe get your hands on the patterns, start thinking about how you might want to hack them, and obviously get to hacking. So look out for next week's video, and next week's theme is going to be centered on black magic, and the focus is going to be on black pattern designers. So make sure you're subscribed to the channel, turn your notifications on, because you do not want to miss these videos. On a side note, I am going to be back here on the channel on Friday. This week Friday, there's going to be a brand new pattern release, and your girl was a pattern tester, and I'm going to be offering you guys some really helpful tips for sewing this particular type of garment. So make sure you stay tuned for that. Turn your notifications on, and that means you will be first notified when I post Friday's video. You might find me here on the channel again on Thursday. It depends how things play out for this week, but definitely look out for Friday's video. Right, you guys, until next time, stay calm, stay cool, stay safe, and absolutely get hacking. Peace.